All right, we've made it to the last and best session of PDMI West 2024. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for making it out for a 2:30 session on the last day. Big respect to folks who are still here to learn. Hopefully a lot of that has to do with the quality of our panel. I think we have a great group here, and I'll get to them in just a moment. One last time, we want to say thank you to our sponsors, education sponsors at Blue Water. Blue Water's been kind of prepping all week. They're in Clearwater, Florida, if you don't know. And so half their team stayed back and has been essentially moving all of their equipment to higher ground. The other half their team's been here and been very active with the show. So thanks to Blue Water. They have a video to play for you here as we get started.
Hey guys, Randy Jackson here.
Welcome to the future of pain relief.
At Tommy John, a lot goes into our underwear before you do.
But now I've found my bubbly side with SodaStream.
Out!
Philips Air Fryer is the original and the very best.
Kid Rock!
Hey, why is everybody so loud in infomercials?
But wait, there's more.
Yeah.
Woo!
And visit Blue Water at table 3. Meeting hall will be open till 5 after this, so please stop by. That brings us to now. It's Moving Fast, streaming's new growth channel, presented by the Brand Response Council. Chris Foster, right here next to me, is the chair of our Brand Response Council. He's also the host of our Take 20 webinar series, which will be celebrating its 100th episode next Wednesday. We're very proud of that. That's something we launched in the middle of COVID, and the fact that it's still going and reaching 100 episodes is something else. Says a lot for you guys too, because it's you guys that come and watch that, so thank you. Chris, I'm gonna let you take it from here. You got a great group. Best of luck.
Great, thanks. First thing I'd like to do, if anyone has coffee or water or an adult beverage, I want to do a quick toast to Thomas, to John, to Monica, to Jessica, and the entire PDMI team. Fantastic. Great job, guys. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Right? Cheers. And a toast to all of you. Final session of the conference. Thank you for coming, right? Give yourselves applause. All right. Okay. We're going to get started with some statistics, and then we're going to introduce the panel. Okay, fast. 5x growth in the number of channels. Astonishing, right? 2020, only 400. Now there's about 2,000. And a couple of statistics around that. About 1,600 are in English, 277 in Spanish, and 123 in other languages. Right? So it's a change of how you actually view content. And look at this. So you are here in 2024, but look at that growth from 2020. It's astonishing, right? In terms of the dollars that have happened in the last 4 years. 4 years is an eye blink in a professional life, right? Everyone agree? And think about now where this is going, moving on to 2027 and beyond. And these are the total channels by service, right? Of course, in Pluto, there's Roku, Sling, off in the far right. So they're coming on more and more. We'll talk a little bit more about the ones that rise and fall, the ones that are going to be persistent. And take a look into the fast viewers. Age skews younger, gender right down the middle. Ethnicity is a little bit interesting, though. And the Hispanic side is 23%, which over-indexes to the general population. And all of these are actually, these statistics are coming from a resource called FastMaster. So if you're not familiar with that, go ahead and Google FastMaster, and he is creating statistics around this channel all the time. So there's some stats in terms of where we've come from in the last handful of years and where we're going and how this medium, this channel is unique. And I just want to then now use that to cue off our fantastic panel. Go ahead and introduce yourselves, please.
I guess I'll go first since I'm sitting next to you first. Hi, I'm Jason Mezic. I'm a director of digital streaming ad sales performance at Paramount Advertising.
Kaitlin Stebbins at Samsung Ads, and I lead our performance sales team.
Hi, I'm Chris Pizzurro, Elite Media Group. I'm principal and co-founder.
Fantastic. So we're all going to jump in, and The one thing we're going to do first is kind of talk about, we talked about if this is a new word or not. And if it isn't, we've made it up. And so you've heard it here first. The changing consumer habits over the last number of years, I think, is really crystallizing in how fast aligns with what we're calling a neuro habit of a consumer. Right? I want to watch what I want to watch, when I want to watch it, how I want to watch it. I don't have to wait until 8 p.m. to watch a certain show on Thursday night. I can watch whatever I want. And I want to watch something that I have subscribed to, which is fine. But if I want to watch something for free and not pay for it, I'm willing to exchange that value. I think that the gentleman from Roku said it really well yesterday. He said there's a clear value exchange of I will pay in order to get this content, but it's on my terms. And I'm coming into that arrangement, that value arrangement, on my terms and not on your terms. So to all the panelists, I think that there's an alignment of new neuro habits, especially younger generation, along with what the features and the structure of what fast channels are. And I'd like you to elaborate and illustrate, and if you agree, disagree, and to speak about that. I'll start with you, Jason.
I both agree and disagree. So I think people do. If you ask somebody, what do you want to watch, or what do you want, people want to watch what they want to watch, when they want to watch it. And I think, going back, when did like Hulu and Netflix start streaming? 10 years ago, 12 years ago? That was sort of the expectation. That was the new way it was going to be. You were going to have no ads. You were going to watch the shows you want to watch when you want to watch them. But I think one of the things we found at Pluto, which is, has a slightly different setup in terms of having curated channels with content that is arranged like traditional, TV, cable channels almost, is that people actually are looking for that lean back experience, right? So they want to be curated to. They know that if they go to, a history type channel, they're going to get documentaries in history. If they go to, action adventure movie channel, they're going to get, some classic movie that they love and they watch every time it comes across their screen. So I think there's both sides of it. I think consumers are used to doing both, and everybody would say they want to watch what they want to watch, but in reality, what they watch is what they're comfortable watching.
I like that. They want to watch what they're comfortable watching. That's fantastic. Kaitlin.
I was thinking this morning that an analogy, like what is fast, and to me it's like a best friend. It's always there. Somebody to sort of to meet you when you're happy, when you're sad. They're always there for you, and I think that it's just a constant in that. It's funny. My husband was telling me the other night. He's like, oh, Samsung TV Plus, and you guys kept me up till 3 a.m. because I saw The Gladiator advertised, and I'm not going to not watch The Gladiator whenever it's available. So I think it really is the new cable. You go in and you're just looking, again, for that lean back experience, something to entertain you, yet it's free, it's always there. There's always something in order available to excite, meet you wherever you are within your journey in consumption.
I like that. Chris?
Yeah, for us, and for those of you who don't know Leap, we're content producers, so we'll produce shows, co-produce shows, branded content, and then utilized numerous fast channels to get our programs out there. So we have a block of travel shows, and for instance, we run on Canella's RVTV, makes sense of travel destination, all of that. So to meet that consumer demand of, part of that new thing is, yes, they want it wherever they want it, they expect it, why isn't it on this platform, which we all know discovery is such an issue. So we always just try to find as many outlets, as many distributions. So for instance, the shows we do with Expedia, they're actually on Pluto. We have a show for Azerbaijan, Expedia on Pluto, or coming onto Pluto in the UK, because that makes sense. Same thing with Samsung, we'll run on In Travel, that's on Samsung channel. So for us as content producers, it's how many platforms can we get it out there, because that's the consumer's expectation, which is its whole set of challenges, right? But
right. No, I love that idea of balancing the concept of comfort and expectation. right? And being able to meet in those both places. We're going to have this is kind of a couple of sections. This one section is going to be titled, How Did We Get Here? And so, Jason, I want to start with you. You've had a background of linear and digital media, direct response experience before Fast came out. What was it about this new channel that really intrigued you?
I started at Pluto before I think Fast was even a term. So, like you said, I did work in cable for a really long time. And in 2018, I had the opportunity to move over to Pluto. And Pluto was launched in 2014. So they went for like the first 3 years without a sales team. They had, all programmatic only for their inventory, for monetizing their inventory. But they were starting up a sales team in 2018, and I was lucky to be in there on the ground floor. And it was really exciting because I kind of mentioned before, Pluto is all curated channels. It looks and feels like an episode player guide, like from a traditional cable service. And it's, a lot of content from basically, at the time, it was all publishers. There was content from A&E and history and food and HGTV and movies from every movie studio. And it was arranged in like regular channels that were curated and scheduled by actual people to, based on what people were watching, put that show back on, be able to make like marathons just like you would do in traditional cable. And what was missing was traditional DR ads, really. It had like a retro feel to it, and it was just missing performance. And I was really lucky. I came out to, I started I think in March. This conference used to be like in April or May. I was there for like 2 months before I came out to the first one. And performance agencies and brands are always willing to test anything. So it was a real quick learning experience, but we were able to get performance advertisers on Pluto as some of the first brands that actually did direct buys with us, which was really cool.
That's awesome. So Chris, I've got a question for you. You've been in the industry a while. Did you see this movement coming?
Of course you did.
Yeah, I did. Before Leap, I worked at a company called Canoe, ad tech play, and essentially we made up a lot of the rules what for today is AVOD, in terms of the consumer wanting what they want, and for us to insert an ad in front of that. Yes, that was at first when we were going around, Jason, probably like you, or I'm going around to people in VOD and they're like, how do you spell that? I'm like, well, it's VOD. Yes, a lot of people had no idea what we were talking about. But it is those experiences that now fund the learning into a lot of our productions. So when we are shooting and doing shows, what we expect the ad load to be is a lot different than what was in traditional linear. And those are things that we started to learn at Canoe looking at the data 12 years ago in terms of what length of time does the consumer start to tune out in CTV or fast channels as opposed to what the tolerance was in linear. And that's a different answer, and therefore now when we're producing a show, if we're going to turn over to the network 28 minutes and 30 seconds of a show that may include ads in there, we know to only make the show 23 minutes and 30 seconds because we're going to have 6 minutes of ads, not 12 minutes of ads. Right? So there's that whole thing of just backing up from the reality of the platform all the way into the production. So we're shooting differently than we did maybe 10 years ago.
Sure, you're shooting for the fast
Yeah, we're
channel.
shooting. Yeah, you're going to shoot or edit most likely differently for what's going to be on a fast channel.
Do you try and put the call to action sooner or has that changed as well?
Sooner and more often. So yes, there could be 5. In an Expedia show, we will have 5 calls to action. We'll basically do a segment, call to action, segment, call to action, segment, call to action. So it's actually repetitive through the show.
So question to follow up on that, when you're doing the content, and do you know when those pauses or those breaks or those natural breaks are going to be for the ads, and do you edit to those?
Yes. But often in FAST and in other technologies, the ad marking of where an ad goes isn't as sophisticated as it is in linear. So that's why sometimes you actually will see you're watching a scene and it's just an ad cuts in, which is quite annoying and something as an industry we need to, there's ways to fix it, just everyone's not necessarily implementing all of that yet.
Yeah, I remember watching Only Murders in the Building on Hulu, and ours is paid, and there was, for the first time this season, a break. And my wife looked at me, she said, what was going on? I said, it's all right. If we didn't pay for it, we'd be seeing an ad right now. But she wasn't used to it. She wasn't aware of it. So Kaitlin, you joined Samsung in 2020, right? Right at the genesis, the dawn of FAST. What was the conversation around FAST like at that time?
I think there's two different conversations. One, a lot of people were certainly excited about CTV and the shift to streaming. It was gangbusters in terms of some people couldn't get enough. Seeing $30,000, $40,000 spent in a few hours, which was great from a sales perspective. But at the same time, and Jason and I were talking about this earlier, there was this misconception or maybe just apprehension from some brands as to what is FAST, and a misnomer that it was a poor quality in terms of content. The audience may not have been as quality in terms of household income or disposable income, but I think we all know that that's a misnomer. There's research out there that shows that the audience is premium. Just think about the TV or the product in which they're consuming, how much those could cost. But I think we're seeing more and more that people are accepting that this is what people are the content that they're consuming. But I think it's come a long way, and for us in particular, Samsung TV Plus, looking at the content and seeing it grow, that's been really exciting, and the premium nature of it as well.
I'd like to touch on that a little bit more with some of those implicit biases about it. From a sales perspective, what are some of the challenges, and how do you overcome or address some of those biases? Either Chris?
Definitely. That definitely does come up. It comes up a lot. I feel like it comes up less now, and I'll speak on Pluto. When we launched Pluto, we were independent and we were getting content from everywhere. Now Pluto is, I think of a slide later on about how many, or you had it before, how many channels are on Pluto, and there's over 200 channels. Half of them are Paramount content or Paramount dedicated channels. So over half of our content and consumption is in Paramount IP, so from all of our cable networks, the movie studios, from CBS, from all of our syndication shows. So that's quality, premium content. But a lot of it is library content. I mean, there's rules for cable companies are not allowed to put first runs on free streaming services. So we have to have shows that are 3-5 years and more older. But we always would say that there is sort of a nostalgia factor, right? People are seeing it, they're watching it. We know they're watching it because we see the consumption. We see the amount of impressions that are coming into the channel. People are watching all of these shows, and even if they are older shows, it's new to them. Or there is, like I said, a nostalgia factor. Like they love 90210, and we have a channel that's 90210 24 hours a day.
And they can bring their next generation, though. Like, if you grew up watching that in your 20s and 30s, and now you have kids, you can say, let's watch this together, so you get a new audience almost, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like I said before, there's a nostalgia factor. And we would talk about, another CBS classic show was the Charlie Brown Christmas. It came out in 1965, so 59 years. That's a show, a program that CBS gave an hour of prime time to every single year for generations. So these people are watching it. It's a show that they grew up with. Their children and grandchildren are seeing it again. So there is value there to even shows that are 6 years old.
That's right. Of course there is. So I'd love to, this next section of kind of entitled kind of what we should be paying attention to right now. So Chris, I've got a question for you. So, RVTV is its own channel. So it's a travel channel. It's super niche. It's kind of like, to me, when I look at it, it's like this visual bloggy website that's super specific of its own thing, but it's a completely dedicated to these devoted fans in this unique subculture, right? I'm not a part of it, but I'm curious and I'm learning about it as I can do it. From those fans, what kind of response are you getting to this channel?
Yeah, so for us, and again, we, as producers, we do a 2-hour block, 4 half-hour travel shows that we air on RVTV Saturdays between 10 a.m. and noon. I'll answer the question this way. We started with them a year ago, Steve, maybe? One program with 6 ads in it. We are now up to 2 hours, and now we're launching 2 other themed blocks within RVTV and on other channels like In Travel and others. So as far as the performance, I think that speaks to it, as we're willing to just keep going further on this journey with RVTV and with others. So that's in terms of us and our programming and reaching the travel consumer, and and for us that works. And then as far as the advertisers we have in there, like I said, Expedia, their branded content, the whole show is theirs. Before our other advertisers, which many of them are performance marketing folks, we work very closely with the gang at Marketing Architects out of Minneapolis. And we've had brands like Nuts.com, Goriana, 4Imprint running in our programming for the good part of that whole year. And they keep coming back month after month. So I think for us, the proof is in the pudding. It's like we're doing more programmings, more shows, more platforms on FAST. And the advertisers are, especially the performance, are coming back. So therefore, and we all know, you don't come back in performance marketing unless it's working.
Unless it works. Right?
So they're coming back month after month, which is nice.
You know, it's interesting. I don't know if this is a fair comparison, but I saw the panel yesterday on the podcasts with Fox and Warner Brothers Discovery, Wondery, and iHeartMedia. And one of the things that they were talking about was the alignment of niche content to the audience that loves it. Right, and we're so fragmented now. We have so many options, but there's a million subcultures, and there's content for every subculture. I would think with something that RVTV really illustrates is a subculture and a group and a fandom can find the content they want, and there's this really, I think, unique relationship that can happen between the content producers and the advertisers in that space and the consumers. Right, one of my favorite brands is REI because they build a community, almost a co-op. Do you see that with RVTV? Do you see that alignment with the content, and the brands, and the consumers?
Oh yeah, and I once you find those folks, and whether it's people who love 90210, or people who love ALF, or people who love RVTV, I don't. This is just armchair research, right? But yes, I do think there is that affinity, like, wow, they're speaking to me. There is that affinity that's there. There's that loyalty there. I think, if anything, really probably the challenge with that is just a matter of reach and frequency. Like, I do want to reach these people, obviously, and they're my loyal fan base and all of that. But at some point, diminishing returns is going to come in. So I think that's where, as an industry, we all have to get better. You know, we all had our R&F curves when it was just linear TV, and we knew what those were. And now all those have been blown to bits. So I do think, yes, while niche is fantastic, and you're speaking to your loyal audience, and they respect you more for being there, there's also that thing of, all right, when have I reached them too many times?
Right, when have I hit that saturation point? So Kaitlin, paying attention to right now, how in the last 4 years has the FAST ad sales process, and what kind of insights have you had that changed the way you think about selling and connecting brands to these audiences?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, or I think we all have said it, that we're in the industry where if we don't perform, we're not making the plan. So at the end of the day, we need to utilize all the tools available to us, right, to connect brands with their target audience to make sure that we're serving their ads to people who are most likely to convert. And I'm sorry to use the buzzword AI, but I don't know how, I'm sure everybody has mentioned it. But yeah, we said we were going to play a drinking game. Everybody drink when you say fast, but maybe we should have done AI. But I think, we're tapping into utilizing AI machine learning algorithms to optimize to client KPIs. So we've done this with a handful of advertisers through beta tests, one of which is Experian. Courtney over here leads our relationship with them. And we were able to, it's a pixel-based solution where we utilize AI machine learning, taking into account Samsung viewership data and Samsung Mobile Galaxy phone data to find users who look like the customer that converted, so the next best customer.
Sure.
So that's been really, really useful for us, as well as we're seeing an interesting intersection between performance and branding. Not sure if brandformance is being thrown around that much, but looking for unique ways in 2025 to really help performance advertisers monetize more space on the TV. I think that's going to be something exciting that we're looking forward to.
Yeah, it's always be learning, right? So Jason, for paying attention to right now, so more channels are coming online. We saw how many are coming, so they're competing, with Pluto in some respects. What are you telling your team and your brands about the opportunities, especially with Pluto and just the channel in general?
Yeah, the way that we think about it and about the other opportunities coming up in the marketplace is kind of also touching on what you said about effectiveness, right? So it's all about effectiveness. At Paramount, we've been in the ad sales game for 80 years. Nothing performs better for traditional branding or lower funnel performance than a 30-second commercial surrounded by premium long-form content on the biggest and best screen in the house.
Period.
So these are in the streaming world. Yes, we have a lot of opportunities to do advanced targeting, contextually for specific audience and segments like that. But really, that 30-second ad in most premium content in a non-skippable format with very high completion rates is just the gold standard for marketing.
Awesome, I love it. All right, so this next section we're going to talk about now is what's going to happen. So a question for everybody, and we'll just roundtable it around. Are we headed for a churn of new channels where some come up and some come down? And are there going to be a few kind of dozen anchor tenants that persist and maintain? How do you think this ecosystem is going to evolve with the numbers and the types of channels?
I think like all things, when something gets to 500 or whatever your slide was, it will start to be consolidation, right? You can't just have this many. So I do believe we'll start to see some maybe smaller or mid-sized fast channels that launched. They can't afford to pay the vendors like Amagi, $40,000 a month to keep the channel up because it's just not supported.
Do you think that's going to be just natural selection, or do you think that businesses will buy other ones to try to pull them into their?
I think there'll be a combination. I think consumers will just vote, voting in terms of that. I'm not going to click on that as no value to me. So I think there'll be some of that. I think some of that will just be business deals. Someone bought someone else, consolidated with whatever. But yeah, I don't think we'll be able to. The consumer, we've heard it from different panels of, you can't, and that's why discovery is so big for us. Every distribution partner that we work with, we will also buy promo campaigns to drive viewership, to drive the value. So, a kind of what's old is new again in fast. And I can tell you, we all know that you run a 30-second promotion in linear to drive to the show, you get a 4x return on that. Same thing we find here. So I think there will be, business terms. I think there will be just people who run out of the money they got. But also there will be those who know the success, what drove the success in linear TV, like doing promos and having people know about your channel. I think some of the winners will know those old rules from TV and be able to apply those to fast.
I like it. Jason, Kaitlin, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, kind of just echoing that. Like Pluto is a fast service, not necessarily a fast channel. So we have over 200 fast channels, and that number does go up and down. And we throw up specials around the holidays or various like theme months. October spooky channels that are coming and going. But I do think that number probably is where we are in that range is for Pluto, the sweet spot, because like you said, people are voting with their remote controls and we can see right away if something's working or not, and we're not going to give, the resources and the bandwidth to channels that are underperforming.
Sure.
So eventually they will be weeded out.
I love it. Question about some generational changes. We know, everybody knows about Generation Z. There are certain behaviors, attributes, characteristics that we're tracking now through that generation. We're learning about them. The next generation is Generation Alpha. There's usually an 11-year time span for generational markers and how they view those. So Generation Alpha now is growing up in a media landscape where A, there are phones everywhere, and B, fast is going to be part of their household viewing patterns. So for Generation Z, fast channels were kind of new, right? Because they maybe grew up a little bit watching television, but they were in the midst of that cord-cutting moment, right? Where some did, some didn't, some saw streaming, some didn't. Some households always had TV and cable, like mine didn't, right? My kids never grew up with a quote-unquote normal television. So they're discovering fast for the first time in their lives. But their children, Generation Alpha, will have this as part of their viewing habits. Kaitlin, I'll ask you, how do you think these media consumer habits are going to change fast in the future? How will fast respond to this new generation coming up, do you think?
Yeah, I think we were talking about it earlier. I heard on a podcast a younger person talk about how they watch sports, like the debate, as well as consume news content on TikTok, and which blew my mind. But where the younger generations are conditioned for a much quicker turnaround, and I'd say for worse, the attention span is there. I can see it with my 5-year-old. If you're not engaging with him within a couple seconds, he's out. So we're taking that into consideration for various channels. The Conan O'Brien channel we launched, which was the first of its kind, partnered directly with Conan and his team. And we deemed it like snackable content. So of his library of content, we took the best bits from his openings as well as interviews and stitched them together in 30-minute increments. And it was a little jarring for me at first, but as you start watching it, you're like, oh, it's essentially the best of the best. And I think we're going to continue to see that, more of that. And we've seen interest from other content creators and Hollywood types as well.
That's fascinating. I think that we were talking about where there's this wonderful interplay now between consumer behavior and technology responses to the consumer behavior, right? All of our consumer behavior changed when this came out, but then our consumer behavior changed the apps on this. And it's this really interesting duality, I think, of what we do as viewers and watchers and media consumers, and then how the platforms changed our viewing habits. We've got some good questions coming up, and we've got time. So one of the questions that I would have, I guess, Kaitlin, is back to you, if you don't mind, because you're one of the products that actually has fast channels embedded into the device, right? Is this now going to be a customer expectation for all new TV device purchases that they make?
I mean, I hope so, for our sake, for our team's sake. But I mean, from our research, we're seeing, right, that the user experience is starting on the television screen. Like, we said, like, it's the biggest screen in the home, the biggest, most beautiful screen in the home. We want to take full advantage of that. So, and I think that, yeah, users are just going to continue their other devices, you know, things that were going into the television, that we're seeing that those are being put away, and the user journey is starting more and more with the built-in OS. And I think we're going to continue to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just playing off of that a little bit of, again, from when we first approached promos, it was, oh, I'm going to make a 30, put it in a wide range of programs and drive to our show, right? Just traditional linear thinking. But now with the OEMs and the opportunity that when you boot up, I'm going to do a sales job for you. When you can boot up the TV and the first thing you see is that huge hero banner that's up on there. We've bought hero banners or quarter hero banners on OEMs, and just to see how that, and literally it's a tune in to the show. So click through right to the show. The performance is very good.
And when you pair that, right, with it's following them in the consumer journey. So when they first turn on the TV, it's the first ad they see. They go into their program, they see it again, continuously hitting them with the message, reinforcing it.
Well, I would think too that as consumers are buying new equipment, right? They're buying televisions all the time. The TVs now, almost like they don't not have these, right? So I mean, I'm old enough to have had a black and white TV, right? But now I can't buy anything but these new TVs, right? I guess, Chris, I would ask you, because you had mentioned some of the lessons learned from traditional linear, the ones who are smart enough can carry those lessons into developing fast. Do you ever think there's going to be a time where this eclipses or replaces linear TV in terms of its trend, or are we going to have a coexisting market space of linear and fast and CTV, and this will be as it always will be?
I do think there will, just like there's still landlines, just like people pay $19.99 for AOL dial-up, right? It still exists. I do think there will always be that part of the market that's just traditional linear. Fast channels are interesting because it really is linear TV plus a lot of these extra things that we spoke about. So I think if anything, fast will just continue to fill that niche from the consumer of, I just want to sit back, I don't want to think about it, I just want to watch 90210, right? So I think that shift from linear will fall more to fast. And then, you know, again, someone who worked on AVOD from the beginning of, you know, you look at the success of Tubi, which is a platform like Pluto, but is very much more on-demand driven than fast channel driven. So I think the consumer will continue to want to find, like you said, find what I want to find when I want to find it, and I want to watch it now. So I think there will, you know, AVOD will continue to grow, but if anything, I think fast will continue to fill that niche in terms of lean back. I just want to watch linear TV.
You know, I had a personal experience with that using Tubi for the first time during the World Cup. So we don't have a traditional, you know, we cut the cord a long time ago, so I can't really watch a lot of live sports unless it's streamed on Peacock or Paramount or something like that, right? And so, or on Peacock, because I watch EPL, I can watch it live there. But during the World Cup, it was televised on Fox. And then as soon as the game was over, it went on Tubi for free. So I had to wait. I had to wait about 3 hours. I didn't look at my phone. I didn't know the scores or anything, right? But that was fine for me because it was I'm going to buy a television. No, I'm not going to buy a television just for that, like a normal linear TV for that. B, I'm going to go to a bar. B, I'm going to go to a friend's house who has a big TV, and he's not going to watch it. And so anyway, it was worth it for me to do that, right? So that, again, that was that value exchange.
Well, you said it's the value exchange.
For me, it was time versus the money. Jason, a question for you. When you're talking to your sales folks or your brands, we know that each marketing channel has a specific job to do. What do you think the job is from the FAST channel in terms of how it is as a marketing media to reach consumers versus a YouTube pre-roll or digital or social? What's the FAST channel's job?
So the way that we look at it is, our fast channels are all bundled together. So all of our, we have broadcast, cable, SVOD with Paramount Plus, and fast with Pluto. The consistency there is all of them have long-form premium content with long-form premium commercials, and they're all totally ad-supported, non-skippable. So we talk a lot about effectiveness. There's nothing more effective, I mentioned it before, than a good commercial in high-quality programming. And I think you also mentioned before, like Gen Alpha, and kind of the rise of social media, and these young people are watching a lot of different social media, which has ads that are skippable, and usually are skipped in the first 3 seconds. And so we talk a lot about what seems cheap is actually expensive, and what looks expensive is actually cheap. And so where that kind of comes from is, you can buy social, like TikTok and Instagram ads for low cost of entry, and those CPMs seem fairly effective, but if you look at it as people are actually only watching it for 3 seconds, when you compare that to, they're skipping it, they're completely skipping it, they're watching it on a tiny little screen. Compare that to watching a 30-second non-skippable commercial, the effective cost per second is between 5 to 20 times more efficient to be buying.
So are you typically seeing your ads as that top of funnel? Is it kind of a mid funnel where you have a QR code for a specific conversion action? Blend of both?
In the performance space, a lot of clients definitely use QR codes. I don't think it's necessarily a huge percentage. Most of these ads are pixeled, and they're using attribution to match back to their IP addresses or the devices that the people saw the ad on versus where they went and downloaded the app or purchased the product. Mm-hmm. And now at Paramount we're able to provide performance for all campaigns, whether they are truly a traditional DR performance marketer or even top of the funnel brand campaigns.
Okay, that's great. Kaitlin and Chris, these can be for both of you. Do you think that we talked about the kind of nichification, do you think that there's an opportunity here for smarter, kind of more contextual ads based on that programming and the content? If I'm going to go to Beverly Hills 90210 channel, I got specific brands that really want to focus on that, kind of contextually embedded in that program. Do you think that that's the case? Is that how you see it moving forward?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, right? It's about performance, price, and contextual is a nice way to utilize some layer of targeting without jacking up your cost. So I think that we utilize that for sure in a way in which if you don't necessarily want to cast a huge wide net and run a network, utilize genre targeting. And I think going back to the niche aspect, I'm just thinking about we launched a bunch of Korean content, and I think
a bunch of what content?
Korean content.
That's interesting.
Yeah, makes a little bit of sense, Korean company, and but I guess with the success of Squid Games and people leaning into their those niche type programming, I think I imagine, and we're trying to push as well with multicultural Spanish language, seeing additional opportunities, how we can partner with advertisers in different ways. So yeah, I totally see contextual coming up more and more.
Mm-hmm. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, a couple ways that we're playing around with that. One is, again, working with some of our agency partners, giving us ads to load into specifically to the shows right before we syndicate them out. And we know, like Nuts.com is in my travel shows, not because they love my travel shows, because the agency knows that Nuts do well with the travel category. Like, kind of makes sense, right? You're out. Okay, beautiful, wonderful. So there's that sort of simple lightning in a bottle sometimes. We're like, great, works really well. So there's that. And then for our own contextual inside our own shows, we've been testing this. Jury's still out a little bit, but stay with me. You're watching a show for Epic Adventures, which is one of our shows. They're in Morocco. So we'll go out to commercial break. The first 3 breaks will be normal performance marketing or branding stuff. Then the 4th spot we'll either use as a promo to push to the next show in the block, or we will actually say specific messages driven by AI in the creative that just says, hey, you're watching Epic Exploring with Josh and Gary, or whatever the hell his name is. Wouldn't you like to go to the destination they're at now? QR code comes up, book on Expedia, tying back to our Expedia. So like really getting hyper targeted on, you're watching a show to this destination, do you want to go? And then give them the QR code to follow up on.
Sure.
I'd like to say it's through the roof and all of that, but it's been sporadic. So we're keeping at it, and like we'll do it for another 3 months and see exactly how it pans out.
No, but I can see.
But it's no harm in trying, quite frankly.
No harm in trying and testing.
Let's give it a try.
Yeah, I mean, you could see different work shoes or travel gear, the stuff that you actually are using in the show. We saw the shoppable moment yesterday in the very first panel with NBC Universal. It shopped the moment where it was the top chef and they were cooking with their knives, and they said, hey, you can buy this knife right now. Right? So I think that aligning that content with the advertiser to the audience is perfect for fast.
Yeah, and we have a culinary block, so Bigger Bolder Baking is one of our best clients. And we'll have the classic brand placement where the KitchenAid thing will just be in the shot. Oh gosh, golly gee, look what showed up. So there's those sort of content integration things which are always fun. And because production-wise, we're very nimble, like we don't make $1 million shows. Like we make $30,000 shows, except for the Expedia ones. But that that just makes the barrier to entry a lot easier for folks. Where, back when I was doing Saturner at TBS and TNT, how many years ago, it was $1 million to do a content integration into Dinner and a Movie, like it was. And now we can be much more nimble and do it at a price point where performance marketers actually can participate. Taking a thing from YouTube influencers and social folks who can be able to do this production a little bit cheaper and makes it accessible for this industry.
It's interesting you say that, because it's almost one of the topics that kind of came up a little bit was CTV allows for some kind of democratization of being in the space where you can get maybe mid-sized brands that can take advantage of kind of a TV exposure and TV advertising. Sure. It seems like Fast is an opportunity for that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure you folks have new advertisers that you probably didn't have in traditional TV that are on your platforms, right?
Is that true?
I would say we definitely have a lot of people that start off on CTV, but we actually do have a lot more on the linear side that we're trying to convert over to come over to CTV. Yeah.
Roger. Okay. So we are the last panel that is stopping you from a cocktail hour. So I think this is fantastic. Unless there's anything that we missed and didn't cover that you want to throw a last pass out. Great. I think we're probably ready for some questions if you got it.
Questions, anyone? I mean, the cocktail party doesn't start
We could
for 2
also
hours,
do the questions
so.
at the bar.
Kaitlin,
I mean,
you can also ask me questions at the cocktail hour.
There is the bar in the meeting hall, but the cocktail party doesn't start for 2 hours. So if you have a question, you're not holding anyone back. All right. No, you're gonna ramble.
Appreciate you all staying. By the way.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for staying. And
Thank
how
you.
about this panel, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Come on.
Thank you, everyone. Really.